If the board gets a court order to certify the election, what happens if the electors ignore the order and continue to stall?
Well, I think there's sort of two things to recognize here. Number one, the will of the voters in Michigan is quite clear, abundantly clear, and there's almost no question about that, and there's certainly no factual or legal basis to question that clarity. I think the second thing to note is that the law is also very clear about what should happen in this circumstances, and there's lots of checks and balances in place to protect and preserve the will of the people, and to protect and preserve the democratic process, the small d democratic process. And so I fully expect, no matter what avenue and how circuitous it is, we'll take that path, and that ultimately the will of the people of Michigan will direct the state's electors just as it's required under law. But then the other thing to keep in mind here is where this moment fits within the broader context of really everything we've seen amidst this election cycle, which has been a near constant effort to confuse the public and sow seeds of doubt among the electorate about the integrity of the election. And now what happens if there's this sort of fear-based effort and strategy that really has no place in our elections process. And so we're trying to protect our voters from that. And again, we've got lots of legal provisions and protocols in place to do that.
So to pick up on your point, let's put aside the will of the people, because as you said, that's very clear. There's no evidence of wrongdoing. There's no evidence of fraud, as the president of others suggested. So that's done and dusted. I think the process of certifying it is what has people worried, because we're seeing a president, and correct me if I'm wrong, who people describe as trying to interfere with Michigan's electoral process in terms of overturning the outcome of the people's will. Are there any significant penalties for not certifying? Because Bridge, Michigan reports that in 2008, the Michigan Attorney Grievance Commission charged a Democratic state canvasser with professional misconduct for refusing to ratify petitions. We haven't found any other penalties. What are the penalties if the Michigan canvassers, those GOP canvassers on Monday, decide to go rogue and not certify the election?
Well, as I mentioned, they have a very clear legal authority to do so under the certification law that says the State Board of Canvassers shall certify. So we expect them to comply with that very clear legal duty. And I'm sure law enforcement and the Attorney General have, and could have a lot to say about what happens in this scenario that they don't comply with their responsibility under the law. My job as the state's chief election officer is simply to say, this is the election, these are the election results, this is the data, and to call on everyone who has a legal responsibility to do so to respond and follow that data and do, again, what the law requires them to do.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.